So we fast forward now to June 2011. There's a sports meet in Bedford. You supply a urine sample after presumably doing quite well at the sports meet, and you
Yeah.
failed the drugs test. You then appeal, and you become the first British athlete to receive a 4-year ban for doping. Talk me through those events.
At the event in Bedford was when I produced a positive urine sample. Now, George was very, I always remember, so again, you're in the warm-up area and everything like that. I'd done my competition. I think I did the 100 meters. I can't remember, maybe the 200 meters as well. And then I go back to the warm-up area because you do your cool down and everything like that. And then I got approached to do a urine sample. And I always remember George seemed a little bit, he started walking away and seemed a little bit uncomfortable. And I thought, okay, what is the issue?
So would you, sorry, just stop you there. So would you taper down your drug use? Not, he would supply you less of the pills as you came up to a track meet. So therefore, in theory, it was flushed out your system. So you should be fine. And
Yeah.
so do you think he knew he hadn't tapered it down in the sufficient way at that point?
Yes, exactly. So he was very like, and this then all made sense. So he was very much like, you use this at this time, at this part of the day, and you use that amount or whatever. For me, it was always remember a little white tablet. I didn't see it. I just saw it as just a tablet. But I think there might have been like different milligrams and things within these tablets that I wasn't aware of. Now, I think on that, well, what happened was he got it wrong. And so I don't know if he thought I wouldn't be tested. Maybe he thought I wouldn't do so well at the competition, because normally you don't get tested if you don't do that well. You just don't. I think they don't. So all their testing kits, it's like, I assume that there'll be a cost to their testing kits. So they're very selective on who they test. They don't really want to be, and I shouldn't say it as a waste, but because they might catch someone you don't know, but they don't really want to be testing somebody that doesn't do that well in a competition, because they're probably not someone that's going to be using performance enhancing drugs. It's not always the case though, but they're probably not. So they want to be testing the ones that are winning or in the top 3, or things like that. So I must have done. I did well in the Bedford competition. I'm not sure. Maybe George didn't realise I'd do so well, or maybe he just had got it wrong. He just had got it wrong. And now what happened was he started to become very, when I got approached, you get approached, they walk up to you and they says, you need to confirm to doping control. And doping control is either an area within the athletics arena that is just for doping control. And so there'll be some toilets, there'll be a little meeting room where it's literally sectioned off just for the athletes and just for the doping control officers. So it is proper sectioned off. Nobody else goes there. So they don't allow tampering of samples and everything. They're very strict in that way. And so once they approach you, you cannot go anywhere else. So if I said, oh, well, I need to go to the toilet on the other side of the track, they won't allow you, because they need to see what you're doing. And everything from then it has to be with them. So all of a sudden I saw George kind of walking off, looking a little bit on edge. I didn't think a lot of it at the time, and I went and did my urine sample. Now, I didn't really get tested a lot. I wasn't an athlete that got tested a lot. I wasn't a lottery funded athlete. I still worked. So normally the lottery funded athletes, they're on what is called like the whereabouts scheme, the program, and they have to literally say where they're going to be at what time of the day, and they have to be very honest about that. There has been athletes that have got banned because they haven't been honest. And this is another thing, they haven't been honest about where they've been. So it's not necessarily the fact that they've provided a positive urine sample or anything like that. It's because they're trying to hide something. And so they receive a ban. Now, for me, I wasn't at that level, and I didn't get tested outside of competition a lot at all. I wasn't even tested inside of competition a lot at all, because I was running at a good level, but I wasn't the best, really. I was still working and I wasn't lottery funded. So I wasn't tested a lot. So I don't know if George thought I wouldn't be tested. I'm not too sure. I got tested and I produced a sample, and that was it. Nothing that was it. And then I always remember that George, I think, was just driving one day, and he said, "Would you leave me if it come back positive or something like that?" And I said, "No, why'd you say that?" And he says, "Oh, I just wondered." It did come back positive. They found me, and I was at work. I worked for East Lindsey District Council at the time as a sports development officer. And they come to my work. I think I'd pulled up in the car park. That's when they handed me a letter, basically to say that I'd been positive. And then from there, I met with the doping control officers that night in Boston, and George as well. And he didn't want me to say anything. And I was sat there at the meeting. I think there was me, George, a doping control officer that I'm now. I haven't spoken to him for a while, but we're good friends, and he's so impressed with how far I've come. And there was somebody else as well that was there, and we had a meeting. He basically said that it come back positive. I literally near enough sat there in silence. George didn't want me to say a lot. Yeah, and yeah, and we just he says, "Oh well, nothing's been taken," and everything like that. And but obviously I knew I had, and he didn't want me to say anything. And that was that. So basically after then, I remember going home, and I remember being very lonely. I remember feeling in like a very dark world. Like everything just seemed a lot darker. I was in a very dark moment, a dark space, and I just felt very much on my own. And I knew my whole athletic career would just go downhill, was just gonna stop, and everything that I'd worked hard for was gonna come to an end. Well, at that point, I didn't know, but I suspected it was going to. So from then, nobody still knew anything because everything hadn't been made, wasn't in the press or anything like that. Nobody knew anything, and I kept a lot to myself. And then it became in the press. So then it became, yeah, everybody became aware of what had happened. And that's when things just turned really bad, and I just felt very on my own. I went onto social media, which was a mistake, and I went onto Facebook, and people were talking about me. They didn't know anything about what had properly happened because I wasn't speaking, so I wasn't helping myself. But some people suspected, and there was like, this isn't Bernice. A lot of it must be down to George. And then things started to come out in national papers. I think I was in the Sun on the back page, or one of the back pages. Yeah, so things just started to become a lot more serious, a lot more real, a lot more darker, at a point in my life that I'd never been before, never wanted to be before. And I felt like I just lost and was losing everything. And then from there, I then went on to the hearing for it, and it was already out in the press anyway. So even if it become that I hadn't actually committed a doping offence, it was always, I think people have made their minds up in any case. We lost the hearing. I say we because George was involved, but at the hearing that I was at, it was like I was on my own, because you literally sit in front of people. George didn't say anything. He didn't want me to say anything. I was offered a welfare officer as support. He said no, not to say anything. And I literally took the full blame of it myself.